This is the third time. Is that kind of blinding? Ooh, but kind of fun. This is the third time I have tried to record this video. I'm losing my mind. And it's all about the dog shit sound. Anyway, I want to talk about classic Hollywood. But you can see I have some books on here, and more books on here, and more books on here, and more books elsewhere. I have my coffee. I'm ready to speak as fast as they do in His Girl Friday. I love classic Hollywood. I've been talking to a lot of people about it recently and just thinking if you wanted to introduce someone to classic Hollywood and introduce them to as much of that 40, 50, 60 year period into as few movies as possible, what would those movies be? And I settled on 4. Is it inspired by Letterboxd? I don't know, but if you're curious, here are my top 4 on Letterboxd. If you only watch one of these 4 movies, that's my cat's tail. Hey girly. If you only watch one, start with Singin' in the Rain, starring and co-directed by Gene Kelly, who is my number 1 classic Hollywood heartthrob. Sexy.
Oh, I know what you mean, baby. But you just try.
And I think it's a great entry point because even if you haven't seen the movie, you probably know about it. Either you know Debbie Reynolds because you're my generation and you know her as Grandma Aggie in Halloween Town, or you might know her as Princess Leia's real life mom. But as I'm saying these, I realize like both of those might be pretty dated. So if you don't know who that is, I bet you have homework you need to be doing. But I'm glad you're here anyway. I won't tell. But Singin' in the Rain is also about classic Hollywood. Even though it's filmed in the 50s, it is about the transition from silent films into talkies and how a lot of stars could not successfully make that change. Next year in 2027 is going to mark the 100th anniversary of synchronized sound, aka talkies. The very first one was The Jazz Singer. And I am not in this video going to talk about silent films at all, just because they're not my jam. They don't really interest me. Obviously Nosferatu is fantastic, but that's German. Some of those very few stars who are able to succeed are Greta Garbo, who I love. This book is about her, or Norma Shearer, who I'm obsessed with. It's also just some of the most fun you'll ever have in your life. Even if you don't know the movie, you probably know the titular song and that dance. You've probably heard the stories that he had a fever and they needed the water to really read on camera, so they poured milk on him. And I think there's lots of like apocryphal elements in that story, but it's a good story nonetheless. That's showbiz, baby. The best story wins, but it is gorgeous. The dancing is incredible. It is just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful film, obviously, and place to start. Then we've got the singing, dancing, musical comedy covered. Although I will mention, I just watched Gold Diggers of 1933 from 1933, which is pre-code. Essentially, pre-code is this really awesome, very narrow stretch of time from like 1927, where you start to get talkies, to about 1934, where this thing called the Hays Code goes into effect that is sort of a huge morality clause for every movie that's being made. There are lots of things that you can't show. The bad guys always have to get punished and get their comeuppance in the end. So before that goes into effect, you get some absolutely buck wild films. One of my favorite examples of this, and one of my favorite classic Hollywood movies and just movies of all time, is Design for Living, directed by Ernst Lubitsch. I will definitely do a video on Ernst Lubitsch. And the concept of this movie is throuple. 2 best friends fall in love with the same girl, and they decide, well, we'll both date her. And it kind of works out in the end. So you get these really cool movies that are sexy, subversive. Oh, they're just so fun. But setting that aside, I don't include that for the same reason that like I don't include Citizen Kane, which is there are a lot of great films that come out, but that don't fulfill this really specific prompt of how can we give you the most quintessential elements of this time period. Number 2, we've got the fun. Let's do the really glossy, gorgeous, heart-wrenching romances. And there's lots of great ones to pick from. If you watch Now Voyager with Bette Davis, you're gonna be crying for 3 weeks. Same with An Affair to Remember with Cary Grant and Deborah Kerr. But I think the quintessential, the classic, the one for this prompt is Casablanca. It has so many iconic lines.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
You'll always have Paris. He's looking at you, kid.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
It stars Humphrey Bogart, who I think is the single most recognizable actor in classic Hollywood. Most easily identified actress is Marilyn Monroe. There's a book about her right here. Obviously, I'm going to do a video on her, but if you want a great place to get started, gentlemen prefer blondes. One of my favorite, that's in the same sort of category as like Singin' in the Rain. Ugh, I'm getting so off track. And Ingrid Bergman, out of this world talented. It's devastating, it's heartbreaking. It has some really incredible discussions about war. So did Gold Diggers from 1933. Like, it's this really upright musical. And then the final number is like, we have to take care of our veterans. They're having an awful time. And then it ends. And that's really nice because sometimes a musical is like, I think it's anything goes, where it's like rip roaring fun, you're loving it, and then you've got 5 minutes left and someone goes, now for the Chinese number. And it is just like one of the most racist things you've ever seen in your life. But Casablanca, I think people think that because studios were like churning out films, a new film a week, some actresses were doing, 20, 30 movies a year, that they are all sort of surface level, and that's just not true. Casablanca is so, so, so moving, and it's always really important to remember the year that they come out. During the war in England, there are these two directors who always work together, Powell and Pressburger, who are just incredible filmmakers, obviously UK, but looking at some of their war films that came out during the war is just I'm thinking about The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, just incredible films. So those are the big two, right? And then I start thinking, okay, we've got like the quintessential, and then we get into genre. If you must watch a Hitchcock, I would suggest not like North by Northwest. Again, maybe that's a video one day, just because there's no plot. My favorite Hitchcock is Rebecca, starring Joan Fontaine and Laurence Olivier, who this book is about, but that's a side note. But obviously, Psycho is incredible, but genre. And of course, classic Hollywood has, all of the genres that we have now, but I think the two that just, like, they don't make them like they used to. Film noir, and we have neo-noir, but it's not the same, guys. And screwball comedy. I'm a comedian, so screwball comedy is like so, so, so close to my heart. My goal is really to make a movie one day that really truly feels like His Girl Friday. His Girl Friday, a lot of people pull up in like an academic context because it has some of the fastest English dialogue ever recorded.
Now, will you please be quiet just long enough for me to tell you what I came up here to say? I have a lunch date already. I cannot break it. Will you take your hands off me? What are you playing, osteopath?
Temper.
And it is rip-roaring fun. And there's some great apocryphal stories in there about the production of it. It's silly and it's great, but I think for this list, I want to give you the zaniest, wackiest, wildest answer. And that is starring also Cary Grant and my favorite classic Hollywood actress, one of my favorite actresses of all time, Katharine Hepburn. The titular baby is either a leopard or a cheetah. Katharine Hepburn walks it on a leash.
I'm just as determined as you are, so you might just as well come with me, because I'm gonna drag you in if you...
And I think this film also has Charles Ruggles, who's one of my favorite supporting actors and character actors in Hollywood. And I will definitely do a video about all of them. It starts with... Cary Grant is an archaeologist, and I love when Cary Grant is like not the suave. I love when he gets flustered.
But why are you wearing these clothes?
Because I just went gay all of a sudden.
And he's got a cute little pair of glasses.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He's an archaeologist trying to assemble the largest T-Rex skeleton, but there's a dog that keeps stealing a bone.
Now, Susan will get you a nice fresh bone if you'll just show us where it is.
And Cary Grant runs into this wackadoodle heiress.
Engaged to be married?
That's right.
Oh, that's nice.
And she falls in love with him and just kind of won't leave him alone.
You mean you don't want me to help you anymore?
They end up in jail at one point. At one point, the cheetah gets loose at a dinner party. It is just so fun and quippy. Screwball comedy is really defined by that great dialogue, which I think film noir is also. Another great screwball comedy is, and I'm going to do a sick transition here. Get ready, buckle up. Can you believe in the year of our Lord 2026, some people are letting their children ride in a car without seatbelts? One of my favorite screwball comedies, Ball of Fire, with again Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. And Barbara Stanwyck, I think, is hands down the most versatile actress in classic Hollywood. Like, Katharine Hepburn could not do the role in Ball of Fire because Katharine Hepburn, like, really can't do like a showgirl dancer role.
The joint is jumping with a drum boogie.
Sorry, babe, you're just too like posh Connecticut. Ball of Fire is so cute and fun. And Barbara Stanwyck, here's a transition. Barbara Stanwyck stars in my pick for film noir, which is Double Indemnity. Film noir is a really interesting time period because it comes around in the mid to late 40s as the war is ending, and we start to sort of culturally reevaluate what our vision of ourselves is. I mean, film noir, I think you should go to the source because suddenly everything that you see that is spoofing film noir will become more satisfying. Like the way I started to learn about these conventions of the slick dialogue.
There's a speed limit in this state, Mr. Neff. 45 miles an hour.
How fast was I going, officer?
I'd say around 90.
Suppose you get down off your motorcycle and give me a ticket.
Suppose I let you off with a warning this time.
Suppose it doesn't take.
Suppose I have to whack you over the knuckles.
Suppose I bust out crying and put my head in your shoulder.
Suppose you try putting it on my husband's shoulder.
That tears it.
The PI, the Venetian blinds, and the high contrast and the Dutch angles was from a PBS Kids show called Between the Lions, which is all about reading. There's a vignette that they come back to called Sam Spud.
And now, once again, it's time for the adventures of Sam Spud, parboiled potato detective.
The name is Spud, Sam Spud. I was working late one night. The blinking of the neon sign outside my window was endless. It was about to drive me crazy. Suddenly, there was a knock at my door.
And that's where I first learned all of these. The Double Indemnity is about just an insurance salesman played by Fred McMurray who falls in love for femme fatale Barbara Stanwyck, who is a young hot thing married to an old man, and they agree we're going to kill the old husband for the insurance money. This movie also has a fantastic supporting role by Edward G. Robinson. Love that man. And every time I'm like, love that person, I hope they haven't done anything bad. Double Indemnity has that fantastic opening speech.
I just want to set you right about something you couldn't see because it was smack up against your nose. You think you're such a hot potato as a claims manager, such a wolf on a phony claim.
Barbara Stanwyck is the sexiest thing you'll ever see, even with the most god-awful wig. And I don't know this for a fact, but I think they're like, someone was pushing against that wig behind the scenes. She still pulls it off as Phyllis Dietrichson. There are like more academic choices. Like I think technically The Maltese Falcon is classified as the first film noir. It has Bogart, but Bogart's already on this list, and it's boring to me. Another one people will cite really often is The Big Sleep, which is Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. The Big Sleep is not their first film together, that's Key Largo, but Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall get married. The sex appeal in films is just bazonkers, off the wall.
Anybody got a match? Thanks.
The Big Sleep is a film noir that they do together that has all of the great sort of tropes. But anytime someone says this as like, oh, it's one of the best film noirs, they also say the plot is completely incomprehensible.
The plot of the film is legendarily confusing.
And I think that's bad. I think we shouldn't have to put that little caveat on a film if we're saying it's one of the great examples, right? But, fun fact, The Big Sleep is co-written by Lee Brackett, who also co-wrote The Empire Strikes Back. So just a really fascinating person. And one thing I will say is this book I need to read is about Frances Marion, who was one of the first women to win an Oscar for screenwriting. And when film was starting, especially more in the silent era, women were a lot of the writers. But those are my big four. Singin' in the Rain, Casablanca, Bringing Up Baby, Double Indemnity. TCM, one of my visions on my vision board is to come in and do my own guest programming slot for a day. Please, 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 please. But I don't want to come to Atlanta. Thank you. Ben Mankiewicz. Love you. But there are so many great films within this genre and this time period. So I also thought, like, I'll just list a few here that I love. I love anything by Ernst Lubitsch, Designed for Living, Ninotchka, which is Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo doesn't do a ton of comedies, and I think Ninotchka works really well because she is the straight man. He also does A Royal Scandal with Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead is someone this is her memoir, I'm so excited to learn more about, and she is just delicious. I also love Norma Shearer, who is, again, one of those few stars who could move from silent to talkies. I loved Frederick March, who's in Design for Living. He wins one of the early Best Actor Oscars for Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But that's some of the finest acting you will ever see. You genuinely forget that that is the same guy. He changes his voice, his movement, just incredible. I also love Rita Hayworth and also Orson Welles, who is briefly her husband. This is an Orson Welles book. I have books about Rita Hayworth, but they're at my parents' house because I already read them when I was in college. I did a project on Rita Hayworth and another one on Katharine Hepburn in college. Rita Hayworth, I think, is best known for Gilda, which is kind of a film noir. She was a great actress and an incredible dancer. Fred Astaire did 2 movies with her and actually said that she's the best person he ever danced with. Take that, Ginger Rogers. I have some beef with Ginger Rogers that I can't explain. I don't know what it is. Rita Hayworth also did, the only movie she did with Orson Welles was called The Lady from Shanghai, which he starred in and directed along with her. And this movie has so much behind the scenes backstory that one day I will probably talk about. She is also in CoverGirl, which co-stars Gene Kelly. And it is just cotton candy colored and so fun. I think she has a really great range and I love her so much. And she's got such a complicated life story. One of my favorites is Stage Door. It's got a young Lucille Ball. It stars Katharine Hepburn and Ginger Rogers and Adolphe Menjou, who I love. Young Eve Arden. I want to be Eve Arden when I grow up. She's so baller. It's all about these women who all come to New York wanting to be a star and all live in the same building and sort of the trials and tribulations of that and the incredible friendships that pop up between those women. If there's any of these things that I'm like, we'll get to one day, comment please and be like, that one. Yes, please. More coffee? More coffee? Kind of gross. God, this is something I could talk about for ages and ages and ages. Did you see the little spit that came out of my mouth just then? Mm-hmm. But go watch some movies, report back, and get ready to learn so much more. And my next video will most likely be My Year of Bronte Part 3 about Anne Bronte and the Tenant of Wildfowl Hall. I am almost halfway through with it and I'm enjoying it. Very interesting. Can't wait to talk to you more about it. Toodaloo!